Some people said I was naive to the situation. I was in denial. For somebody who's been with Turner 33 years, I never missed a day of work. I was never sick. I was never to the point ever where, I missed a game. And maybe I was in denial, because I certainly didn't think it was going to be this long a process.
Aside from coaches and players, there were few people more closely associated with the NBA than Craig Sager. For more than 2 decades, Sags has been offering his insights and hustling from sideline to sideline, never missing an assignment until last April.
As I was going back and forth to the locker rooms, I just felt like not myself. And I had a hard time getting back and forth. And I ran into Dr. Serial from the Dallas Mavericks, who had operated on my knee in a skiing accident a few years earlier. And I said, "Doc, I just don't feel good." And he did some initial testing. He says, "You got to go to the hospital. I'll drive you." They took me to the emergency room, and then they did the blood work. And they said that my hemoglobin was 4.6. According to their standards, that was, quote, walking dead. Suddenly, one of the doctors came back and said he thought I may have leukemia.
You go from doing post-game interviews to having a doctor tell you you might have leukemia all in the span of hours?
Yeah, and I'm there by myself. So I called Stacy, and I said, "Man," I said, "you got to get down there and get me."
But he had 6 blood transfusions that night, and so I was on the plane the next day, for sure. They didn't want to discharge him, but Craig's like, "We've got to go home." It's still hard to get my head around the whole experience.
When they arrived back in Atlanta, doctors confirmed what Craig had initially been told. He was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia.
Acute myeloid leukemia, or AML, usually has a pretty rapid onset. So someone could have been feeling well and even had pretty normal blood counts 6 or maybe even 3 months before the diagnosis, and then all of a sudden they feel very unwell. Untreated, it's a disease that would be rapidly fatal.
Do you remember what you were thinking in terms of how much longer do I have with my kids? I mean, were you thinking in those kind of life and death terms?
Well, it was tough because the older ones knew the severity of the situation. They'd Google it, read about it. Probably the hardest part was the little ones. They were 8 and 9, and you had to be 12 to visit, so they couldn't even come to see me.
As the NBA playoffs began without Craig Sager, word quickly spread through the league of his diagnosis.
I just want to say to Craig Sager, you're the best. We miss you. Fight your ass off, man.
We're all pulling for you, so we need you back.
Get well soon. Won't be the same without you.
We're thinking about you, and we miss you here in Chicago.
I know you had to be so frustrated to not be out there doing it, because that's what you do. But then here comes Junior talking to Pop.
It's a tie game in San Antonio. Coach, to Academy. You ready? Nice to see you, by the way. All right. Coach Sager, how you doing? I'm doing all right.
Pop, he's a great guy. People would always, make comments about the way he'd treat me on the interviews.
How can you be that professional in a suit that looks like that?
It's 18 points. Thank you very much.
We got to do this in the preseason? Are you kidding me?
I think I was sending telepathic waves to someone at Turner, because as soon as he got sick, I thought Craig Sager needs to be in the playoffs. Like, I wish I could go out there and do it, but no one's ever going to ask me to do it.
Right before the game, our PR man hit me with it and said he's going to be there. I said, "That's great. We can do that." I said, "That might be fun."
I'm sitting there watching the game, and he comes over and does the interview, and, whoever came up with that idea at Turner was like, tears streaming down my face. And
how would you assess your team's performance so far?
Decent, not very good in some ways, but Dallas has done a good job defensively. I just wanted to be off the cuff and meet Junior and let his dad know through him that he was cared about. Well, I got to tell you, you did a great job, but I'd rather have your dad standing here. That's great. We miss you. You've been an important part of all this for a long time, doing a great job. We want your Fanny back on the court, and I promise I'll be nice. Get back here. Good luck.
He wrote this heartfelt note to me about me being strong and fighting and, part of his team. And it was like, oh, geez, this was unbelievable.
I wanted Craig to know that we're people thinking about him. I'm not the only guy. There are a whole lot of people that really, love this guy and respect this guy.
KG, Kevin Garnett, was the first to send flowers. He sent this unbelievable bouquet.
Anything for Seg, man, he knows that. I sent my regards to him and anything he needed and anything that I can do, obviously from my family to his.
He had signed it, you know, KG, AKA Big Ticket, from my family to yours. And it was like, just things you just didn't expect.
I'm glad you brought KG up because you guys have a very interesting relationship. That's some of the best exchanges we ever see.
Craig, what's up? What'd you say? Let's talk about this outfit you got on. You take this and you burn it.
There's not any part I can keep?
No, nothing.
He's just one of the most competitive, caring, give it all, you know, athletes I've ever met.
I've dealt with cancer in my family. I mean, anybody who's dealt with that knows how serious of an issue it is.
The flood of support, of well wishes, of email, was that overwhelming?
No, it was a testament of how Craig lived his life every day.
It was the support of Sager's family and friends that would have to carry him through the most challenging year of his life. His cancer treatment had just begun.
Some patients, just giving chemotherapy is not going to work or unlikely to work, and that was the case with Craig's leukemia. And those patients, if they're young enough and healthy enough, are candidates for a bone marrow stem cell transplant. And we felt like that gave him the highest chance for curing this disease. So that's what he's been going through the past several months.
They gave us the word cure. That was all I needed. So how do we get there?
Once you get that word, did it make it more manageable for you guys to say, okay, this is what we've got, this is how we're going to fight it, go?
Absolutely.
Did it seem unreal the whole time to you, Craig?
To be honest, no. Like I said, I looked at it as just something that struck me and I have to get over it. And no sense complaining, it's not gonna make it any better. I've had a great life, but you know, I still have 2 young kids and a family and Stacy, and I told the doctors, I'm coachable, you tell me to do something, I'll do it.
With a plan in place, the search for a bone marrow donor began.
The whole process of identifying an unrelated donor and collecting their cells can take at least a couple of months, sometimes longer. In Craig, it was very unusual that his son actually matched him. That happens, you know, maybe 5% of the time.
A sibling possibly could, you know, be a good match, but it's rarely one of your kids. It's just an odd situation. Basically asking your kid, you know, to, you know, face the risks and pain and danger what he has to go through to basically save you.
So, Junior, did you save your dad's life?
So they tell me. It's weird to think about it like that. I never really thought about it until probably right before it. I mean, he talked about how much they actually drained the people before these transplants, and when I saw him, like even the day before, you realize, okay, like this is gonna be the thing that saves him. It has to work.
He was supposed to take it easy afterwards, but he was determined he was going to run the Peachtree Road Race. It's kind of a family deal. I had run it 32 years in a row. And
I felt like I had a responsibility to show people, because I know I was scared. I mean, I used to freak out if I had to get my blood drawn. I used to faint if I got my finger pricked. So all of this was out of my comfort zone.
And they wanted to keep him in the hospital. He says no, and he was adamant about it. And they said to me, he said, you got to talk him out of it. You got to tell him he can't do it.
They're asking the wrong guy to talk him out of it.
Then he was done, and you know, he was in pretty bad shape, and he came right to the hospital and gave me his T-shirt. And I was like, oh man, he did it, you know. He just wanted to show how strong he was.
Luckily for Craig, it wasn't just Junior's will that was strong. For the transplant to be successful, the cells Junior donated would have to overpower those in his dad's body.
I would say it's like fighting a war, and it's a war that you're not entirely sure when it's going to end.
After several, you know, months, and finally, it kind of felt better. I think I turned a corner. I had felt this inner strength that I had been missing for months. I could feel that the worst was over. Sure enough, they take the blood samples and all, and they go, Junior won. I go, what? They go, yeah, you were no match. His blood cells and everything he gave to you is taken over. He won, which meant I won. I remember when I finally got to come home, You know, I'm driving and, you know, you miss stuff like, you know, hearing the birds, smelling the flowers, feeling the sun, and you finally got out and, you know, I'm sobbing. I hear Riley, who's the 9-year-old, oh, Daddy's home, Daddy's home. And the little 8-year-old guy, Ryan, he comes running in the door and he sees me and he goes, oh, now I no longer have to see Daddy in my dreams. You're here. And it's like, oh, jeez. You know, that's when you just broke down and lost it.
It may still be a few months before we see Craig Sager back on an NBA sideline. But for now, his treatment is going about as well as can be expected.
I think even a week after the transplant, Craig was chomping at the bit probably to get back into doing what he loves to do and what he's great at doing. He's not completely out of the woods. We're very optimistic. We, of course, believe he's going to be cured, but we know we have to watch him carefully for at least the next 6 to 12 months.
So how good is it to have this guy home for Christmas?
It's pretty special. To have him home every day is just... it's a miracle.
It's a good word for it, I think. I didn't hear you say that word when we talked, Craig, but I think that's pretty appropriate considering everything that went on.
Well, to have a miracle, you have to have an angel. And she's always been my angel. There's other people who have gone through this. Other people have had more difficult times than I did. I had a great support system. You know, and be sitting in a hospital room, which can be very dull and depressing at times. And it was something I couldn't do without her. You said it was a miracle. Yes, it was. And she's the miracle worker.
Hey, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you. Thanks, love.